to work first thing this morning. So I want you to envision a large, like light greenish bottle that's about this tall and about this big around at the bottom and very fat, comes up to a narrow neck. You see terrariums in jars like that sometimes. Okay, so you've got that in your mind. Now I want you to see this lovely white goose in there. And so it's beautiful to behold, but there's a problem. Our goose wants out. So how are we going to get that little guy out of there without breaking the glass and possibly hurting him? Well, it's very simple. You imagine him out. That's how he got in there in the first place. Whoa. So the power of that exercise, or the idea of it is what is happening in our mind is crucial. We talk about this in Unity. We teach that our thoughts are prayers. And yet, in the blink of an eye, we go in our minds to scenarios that do not lift us up, but rather drag us down. So I want to talk about the lifting up process this morning. It is our faith that lifts us up. When we believe that God desires goodness for us, then even in the face of humans doing various ugly things, we don't have to get undone. So Charles defined faith several ways. Faith is the perceiving power of the mind, linked with the power to shape substance. It is spiritual assurance, the power to do the seemingly impossible. It is a force that draws to us our heart's desire out of the invisible spiritual substance. And it is this deep inner knowing that that which is sought after is already ours for the taking. Well, we all know faith is one of our 12 powers. We also know that faith is an inside-out process. Wayne Dyer described it in the title of his book, "When you believe it, you will see it." It has so much to do with our consciousness. Now, I don't know about you, but I spent most of my life thinking I needed more faith. But when I came to Unity, I heard a rather shocking new way of thinking, that I already have all the faith I will ever need. We don't gain faith, but rather we discover it and direct it. The issue isn't how much faith we have, but where we are directing it. So we are in the director's chair. You can have faith in doctors, surgery, and medicine. I certainly did when I broke my leg about 6 years ago. I've got a list of things we can have faith in. Some of them are helpful and some not so much. You can have faith in people being good or in people wanting to rip you off. I know a couple, they never lock their car, they never lock their home. They can be gone for a week, 2 weeks. They've got faith that people aren't going to rip them off. You can have faith that in your spiritual journey, God will provide everything that you need to have an amazing life of love and joy. You can have faith that life is one darn thing after another, and then you die. But I especially don't recommend that last one. So here's the rub. Life happens. Challenging events happen in the circumstances of our lives. You can have one of those, or our car can break down and need an expensive repair, or even worse, it may plain old die. Or someone we love is diagnosed with cancer. In our job, there are cutbacks, and we are let go. There's a fire, a flood, an earthquake, and everything is gone. Or our partner wants a divorce, and we didn't see it coming. It seems to be this human thing to think, this is the worst thing yet. There is no solution. I will never get through this. But there is another option. And here's a story that I've known and loved for decades, and maybe you have heard it, but it's worth hearing a second time. It happens in ancient China in a rural area. There's a man with a family, and he owns a horse, so that puts him in the wealthy echelon. And so one day, the horse ran away. And since this is a tight little community, the neighbors come running and say, oh my goodness, how are you going to plow your fields? How are you going to do this, that, and the other? Your horse is gone. And the wise old man says, good luck, bad luck, who knows? So they go home. The next morning, the dawn breaks, and here comes his horse leading a whole pack of wild horses with him. So now the neighbors are back, and they say, oh my God, we can't believe how lucky you are. Now look at this. You have more horses than you ever dreamed of having. But he still keeps that same thought. He says, good luck, bad luck, who knows? So the following day, the sun is going to start breaking these new wild horses. He gets on, and before you know it, one of them have thrown him off, and he breaks a leg. Neighbors arrive again. Now what are you going to do? Now your son, who helps you with everything, he has a broken leg. What in the world are you going to do? And again, good luck, bad luck, who knows? And again, a few days pass, and the emperor has sent his army around to gather up all the healthy young men to be in service. So now the neighbors are back. We can't believe it. Now your son gets to stay at home where all sons are off. We don't know if we'll ever see them again. He says, good luck, bad luck, who knows? Well, this story could go on, but I'm going to stop there. But if it were my story, I would change what the old man says from that kind of disengaged answer to a statement of faith. And I learned this from my pastor at Bon Air, Joyce. And I don't always get there immediately, but it's my hope that one day I will go straight to this when these challenging things happen in my life. So here it is. Wow. I can hardly wait to see what great good will come from this. So let's all give it a try. Wow. I can hardly wait to see what great good will come from this. So what does that do? It puts us squarely in the path of looking for good to come to us. It creates the space to discover the power and presence of God, which is our daily word was talking about this, in every situation, even when everything that we see and hear looks discouraging. So we know the question isn't, will we face change? The question is, Will we stand in faith as we walk down roads we have never been before? We can be flexible and able to meet change when we are centered and poised in our faith in the goodness of God. We can meet change with God's comfort instead of the human screaming. We can invest our faith in having something amazing happen instead of putting our faith in some treacherous, dire result. Our faith is our expectation, this anticipation of divine good. We're looking about for wondrous benefits that God has for us. So when we make that statement, it changes this expectation within us. If there's no solution, I don't know how I'm going to get through it, to looking for the good. We do not fear change when we know that we are one with God and God is one with us. When we know this oneness, we have a deep sense of oneness with all of God's creation. And in that, nothing can shake or confuse us. We know that we can ask for direction, follow God's guidance, and receive inspiration and love. We know the possibilities are limitless. So there's a couple questions. We can ask important questions when these things arise. And one I find very helpful is, what is Spirit seeking to bring forth in my life? Now that question is a lot more helpful than the second question that I often come up with, which is, what the hell, right? Oh, it's so easy to go there. So, and I've been known to ask both. What is God seeking to bring forth in my life? So we know when things are happening, things are kind of in chaos, that's often a sign that something new is coming to birth in our lives. Well, birth involves like discomfort and labor pains and pushing and screaming, right? Tough stuff. But what happens then? You end up with the baby. Something great is on the way. Bringing something new into existence is not always a piece of cake. But it doesn't mean that we are being punished either. We are spiritual beings in a human body. It isn't always cake and ice cream, but if we go through it with the expectation that something great is on the way, it can be a lot less painful. So this involves trust and surrender. To let go and let God work through us does not mean that we let go of the responsibilities that are ours. It means that we let go of the anxiety over the change, our worry about the change, our feeling that it is up to us alone to meet the change. So these are the ways we stand in trust and surrender. We remember we are one with God. We let go of anxiety. Now, my favorite thing to do, when I get so messed up, I can't get to an affirmation, that's when I use the phone a friend option. Because they're not tied up in the hamster wheel going on in my brain, and it's easy for them to stand in prayer with me for where I want my mind to be. And it's not up to us alone. We never have to figure out something on our own. We have the vastness of divine mind. to be at work with us. And it helps to remember that God can make a way when there seems like there is absolutely no way possible. And the final thing that's very helpful is it's not what happens to us, it's how we respond to what happens to us. So that's that wow statement, right? The wow statement gets us out of, there's no way through this, to seeing there's a possibility lurking somewhere. So it's a good thing to ask ourselves, what direction is my faith? What is my focus? Am I being pulled down by looking only at the external circumstances, only at that which is visible? Or do I have my focus on this invisible power that lies within me? Am I seeing the possibility of the power and presence of God to do something so wonderful it exceeds my imagination? Now, if you're like me, sometimes I have to slime around in all that negativity before it dawns on me that I have this choice. But that's the truth. We can choose to imagine God at work in the invisible realm, making a way where there appears to be no way. And I want to share a story with you from Linda Whitsett Marcella, who wrote the book, How to Pray Without Talking to God and Divine Audacity. She's an amazing theologian, and I was listening to a sermon of hers the other night, and she shared this story, that when she got engaged and she was in a going to be in an interracial marriage, she went home to tell her parents. And her sister was already in an interracial marriage. So when she told her father, he had booted her sister out of the family. So it was really not too surprising that at that point he completely turned her back on her. Got up, walked out of the room, wanted to have no contact anymore with her. A very painful place to be, and a place that seemed like there wasn't much possibility of anything good happening. She got married, they had children, she would call home. If her dad answered the phone, he'd hang up. If her mom answered the phone, she would talk to her. So Linda had to do some serious talking to herself and realize that this unwilling to be inclusive was not really the truth of who her dad was. She'd seen him be kind and compassionate and caring throughout her life growing up in that family, but in this circumstance, he couldn't bridge that gap. So she just held with faith the possibility that this would change, that somehow the place within him that was love would open up again to loving her and accepting her husband Giles and their 2 children. And it happened. About 9 years after this announcement of her engagement, she called home one day, and he picked up the phone and began talking to her. And shortly after that, there were airline tickets in the mail for all 4 of them to come home and have Thanksgiving dinner again with the whole family. She held on, knowing that there was something within him that was bigger than that fear, that uncomfortableness, that thing that whatever it was that was disturbing him so deeply. All of us have had this experience. We've been through heartbreak, needing a place to live, job loss, difficult bosses, family situations where forgiveness seems impossible, disease, loss of a loved one, depression. And because you are sitting here, I take it that means you not only survived, but you grew and learned after some reflection that was an experience that prepared you for another life adventure. We can see moments of grace now that were not apparent while we were going through that circumstance. The strong, courageous person you are right now is because of that experience. So I acknowledge all of us make choices. I made choices. You know, and you hear these stories about, well, you're in the light and you're making choices about who you're going to incarnate to be. Well, I swear I would not have checked off the box that said to be raised Catholic instead of unity, or a marriage partner with mental illness, or getting little rural churches that were conservative while I was liberal, blah, 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 all these things. We each have our lists. Each of these things shaped who I am, and they have shaped who each of you are. But more importantly, what really got us through was who we believed that God was. How were we going to get through that with a power greater than ourselves? The way we think about that which is before us is decisive. Our thoughts and attitudes matter. Our faith can empower us to see the good that is not yet visible. So I want us to listen just to part of a Karen Drucker song. It's called I Surrender, but it's about faith, surrendering, and trust. So we're going to listen to a little bit of that, then we have a closing word or two.
I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith, and I am stronger every moment, every day. My mind is willing and my heart is open wide. I trust my instincts and let Spirit be my guide. I vow to live a life that's real and pure and free, as I continue walking in this mystery. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure faith, and I am grateful every moment, every day. There may be walls, there may be roadblocks in my way, but I can choose to take a higher path.
You get a little
each
extra.
day.
It's a beautiful thing. You can go to YouTube, Karen Drucker, I Surrender, if you want to hear it again. So I'm going to invite you. The next time that something looks and smells like trouble that comes your way, and you start thinking, this is really bad, or this is impossible, I challenge you to change that thought to, I am a man or woman of great faith with divine power. With God, all things are possible. And then, to go to the great affirmation, we're going to say it one more time to close our time together. Wow, I can hardly wait to see what great good will come from this. Claim that which you cannot see, for it is there as surely as the events that you can see. Be ready for a huge harvest of good as you live in faith. Namaste.